These trees come from my property. This is a tulip tree, and a tulip tree is a very distinctive tree. It's fairly easy to identify. For one thing, it's straight up. When it grows, its trunk, it just goes straight as a die, and it is a huge tree. It's actually the tallest tree in this area as far as how far it grows up. It can grow up past 200 feet. So this is in the center is a leaf of the tulip tree, and it has one of the ways to identify trees is to look for lobes and also for points or sawtooth edges. This has a clean edge, but it has 4 to 6 points on it, and it's fairly distinctive shape. So you will see this and identify it fairly quickly, I think, if you were to see them. Now, up in the upper left corner is the remains of the seed pod, but actually it was created by the flower, and it was pollinated, and these are the seeds that are growing toward the top. You can see a stem below, and that was attached to the twig that this flower came from. The flower does look like a tulip. It's very pretty. It's yellow with an orange base to it, and it is the same, very similar shape anyway to a tulip. Now on the right, you will see that kind of tulip shape on those in the middle there. You will see the remains of some of the seeds that were in a whorl around the base of the flower, and a stem that comes up through it, a pointed stem, looks like it's pointed like a needle. That is, the pointed stem is the holder for all of the seeds. Now there's only a few seeds left on that thing, but that thing was loaded solid with seeds. So there might be anywhere from, I would say, 50 to 100 seeds, or 50 to 75 seeds in those packets of the flower. And they tend to fall off very slowly, so you can identify the poplar by looking up in the air in a forest. And if you see these cup-shaped, tulip tree-shaped things up and on the branches, you're probably looking at a tulip poplar. On the right are the seeds, and they have a little curve to the end, and that's where the actual plant will emerge when they germinate. And they have a wing, just a single wing that comes out of that. And so when they fall from the trees, they do whirligig a little bit coming down, and that will spread them out, especially if there's a wind. So this is, at the bottom, we will see a branch. This is a fairly large stem. At the bottom of the slides, each one of the slides, you will find the common tree name, scientific name, family name, or group, and other info for your reading information. Okay, our next slide is the sycamore, and some of you may know the story about the sycamore and the slaves who came north during the Civil War. There was a song that was called the Ghost Tree Song, and they talked about following the ghost trees to safety, which would be Ohio and Pennsylvania and Indiana, in Indiana mostly. And it was the actual bark that they were talking about with the follow the ghost trees, because it was pure white at the tops and in the middle. And so they could see them very well at night, and that's when they traveled. So the ghost trees. So the first thing I want to look at is the leaf, and you'll see that it has a stem and a fairly large base to that stem at the bottom part of it, not where it's attached to the leaf. That part there covers the bud of the tree, and we'll show that to you later, the bud actually. It covers the bud of the tree during the summertime when the leaf is green, and the reason for that is just to protect that bud a little extra and keep it from being chewed on by other animals like squirrels, or perhaps birds might even peck at it. So it's a protection. Now the leaf is 5 to 6 pointed generally. And you could call these lobes, some of the lobes near the top, I think they would be defined slightly as lobes in between each point. So the leaves are covered with, there are quite a few leaves that are, no, sorry, there are veins that run off the base of the leaf, and they kind of look like they originate out of the stem, and actually they do, because they are gathering food and sending it down to the rest of the tree and to the roots as well. Okay, so now on the right, you will see a sample of the bark on the lower part of the tree, probably where where you can pull it off. It sheds every once in a while, and these just fall off and reveal whiter bark underneath. And as you go up in the tree, there isn't very many of this dark type of bark. It's mostly just smooth white bark. And if you look at the top there is a sample of the bud of of a stem of sycamore, and that would be the terminal bud. Also down on the lower left, you can see a little better example of the one at the bottom there. It is purplish in the summer, real pretty, but it is covered up, so you don't see it until the leaves fall off later on. And the twig has different nodes. It is alternate in branching, so that you have no buds one straight across from the other, and you do have a terminal bud generally at the end of each branch. Then straight over next to the bottom of the bark, you can see what are the seed heads, or the seeds actually, coming from the sycamore. During the summer, the flower of the sycamore produces a bud, and it produces seeds for the next year, or for that fall and into the spring. So the circular ball that you see up there with a twig on it, or a stem, and that stem is connected at the base of where the flower bloomed, and that ball hangs down all winter, and in the spring or late February, this thing starts to shed its seeds, and that's what we see at the bottom of the bark is the seeds. So we have sycamore, and at the bottom is the ball. It's a little bit in the shadow there, but that little ball is where the seeds were actually attached. So they finally come loose and fall off. So we have sycamore, and its scientific name is Pinus occidentalis. It is in the Platanaceae. Okay, so the next slide is the cottonwood. It's eastern cottonwood, and the scientific name is Populus deltoides. The leaf is simple, and it has a stem at the base, as you can see, and it is attached to the edges of the branches, or the very top of the branches. This is alternate again, and so we won't have opposite buds or opposite growing leaves. The leaves again have quite a few veins on them, and this time it has a sawtooth edge, and those are very, very common within a lot of the trees. A lot of them do have that kind of branch where they have just a leaf that has a stem and a leaf with sawtooth edges. So the stem is a little different. It is quite flat, and it has, because of that, it has an ability to allow the leaf to sway in almost any kind of a little breeze, back and forth. It'll just go back and forth kind of with the flatness of that stem, and that allows in a heavier wind, it allows the leaf to go flip-flop back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It creates kind of a soft sound that you can hear if you're around that tree when the wind is blowing. So they have a little bit different system there. The stem is, again, alternate, and at the base down here, it's actually the terminal bud, and the terminal bud has either several covers to it, or it is several buds, and I'm not sure which one those are in this one.